The squire went to Bristol to outfit a ship and get us ready to go to sea, and it took longer than he thought. The doctor had to go to London to seek a physician to take over his practice. And I stayed at the squire's house with Tom Redruth, his loyal gamekeeper. I spent all of my time brooding over the map, and I was full of sea dreams and anticipations of strange islands. But I never imagined anything as strange and tragic as what our actual adventures would be. After I'd spent many weeks daydreaming by the fire, Tom came to me and said,
"This letter arrived. It's addressed to Dr. Livesey, but says to be opened in his absence by Tom Redruth or young Hawkins. I can only read print, so you read it."
I opened the letter and read aloud,
Old Anchor Inn, Bristol, March 1st, 1746. Dear Livesey, I don't know whether you are at home or in London, so I'm sending this letter to both places. The ship is ready, and you won't believe how sweet she is. A child could sail her. Her name is Hispaniola, and my old friend Blandley purchased her for a trifle and worked hard to get her ready for us. So did everyone in Bristol, as soon as they got wind of what we'd be searching for. Treasure, I mean. Oh, Dr. Livesey won't like that,
I commented.
He told the squire not to talk about the treasure.
He can talk if he wants. He's the squire,
Tom grumbled. I gave up any more attempts at commentary and continued to read.
Finding a crew was difficult. I needed about 20 men, and I had a devil of a time finding even half a dozen. But then the most remarkable luck brought me the very man I required. I was standing on the dock, and by accident I started talking with him. He's an old sailor who owns a tavern and knows all the seafaring men in Bristol. He told me he'd been ashore a long time and wanted a position as cook to get to sea again. He'd hobbled down there that morning, he said, just to breathe the salt air. I was touched, and out of pure pity, I hired him on the spot to be the ship's cook. He's called Long John Silver, and he lost a leg in the service of England, which I thought was a strong recommendation as to his character. He helped me find the crew, and we put together a company of the toughest old sailors imaginable. Not pretty to look at, but they have the most indomitable spirit. Long John even got rid of 2 of the men I'd already hired, after he showed me they wouldn't be suitable for an adventure of this importance. I'm eating like a bull and sleeping like a tree, yet I shall not enjoy a moment until we are underway. Seaward ho! Let young Hawkins stop to see his mother, with Tom Redruth, and then both should come to Bristol immediately. John Trelawney. Postscript. Blandley also found an admirable fellow to captain the ship. He's a bit businesslike and stiff, but in all other respects a treasure. And Long John Silver unearthed a very competent first mate, a man named Arrow. So things shall go very well on board the good ship Hispaniola. J.T. Hooray!
I shouted, gleeful to be starting our adventure, even if I did have to travel with a grumpy old man like Tom Redruth. The next day, after dinner, I said goodbye to Mother, and the cove where I'd lived since I was born, and the dear old Admiral Benbow. Within minutes, Tom Redruth and I turned a corner in the road, and my home was out of sight. A stagecoach picked us up at dusk, and I dozed the whole way. When I opened my eyes, it was morning, and we were in a bustling city.
Where are we?
I asked.
Bristol,
Tom said.
Get out.
Mr. Trelawney was rooming at an inn down by the docks to supervise the work being done on the ship. Tom and I started walking to the inn, and on the way, we saw a great multitude of ships of all sizes and from all nations. On one ship, sailors were singing at their work, and on another, men were aloft, high up on ropes that seemed no thicker than a spider's thread.
I can't believe I'm going to sea, to an unknown island, on a ship with singing seamen,
I said excitedly to Tom. Suddenly, we came to the inn and met Squire Trelawney, who was all dressed up like an admiral.
"Here you are!"
he cried.
"The doctor came last night. Bravo! The ship's company is complete."
"Oh, sir,"
I cried.
"when do we sail?"
"Sail?"
he said with a laugh.
We sail tomorrow.
After breakfast, the squire gave me a note to deliver to Long John Silver.
He runs a tavern called the Spyglass,
Trelawney said.
Follow the docks until you see a sign with a telescope on it.
I set off and picked my way through people and carts until I found the place, a bright little tavern with crisp red curtains. In spite of clouds of tobacco smoke, I could clearly see the customers inside the room, and most of them were loud, seafaring men. As I stood in the door, a man came out of a side room, and I was sure he must be Long John. His left leg was cut off close to the hip, and under his left shoulder was a crutch that he managed with wonderful skill. He was tall and strong, with a face as big as a ham, plain and pale, but intelligent. He whistled as he moved about the tables, and had a merry word for his favorite guests. From the very first mention of Long John in Squire Trelawney's letter, I feared he would be the evil one-legged sailor the captain had warned me about. But one look at the man before me was enough. I'd seen the captain, Black Dog, and Blind Pew, and I believed I knew what a pirate looked like. This one-legged tavern owner was very different. He was clean and pleasant-tempered. I walked up to him.
Mr. Silver, sir?
I asked, holding out the note.
Yes, my lad,
he said.
And who are you?
Then he saw the squire's letter.
Oh,
he said quite loud.
You're our new cabin boy. Pleased to meet you.
He took my hand in his large, firm grasp. Just then, a customer rose suddenly and made for the door, and I recognized him right away. It was the greasy-faced man missing 2 fingers who had come to the Admiral Benbow.
Oh!
I cried.
Stop him! It's Black Dog!
I don't care who he is,
said Long John.
But if he hasn't paid his bill, Harry, run and catch him.
A man nearest the door leaped up and started in pursuit.
Who did you say he was?
Long John asked.
Black what?
Dog, sir,
said I.
Didn't Mr. Trelawney tell you about the pirates? He was one of them.
My suspicions were thoroughly reawakened on finding Black Dog at the Spyglass. Despite what Long John said, and I watched the one-legged man narrowly. Long John was too clever for me, however, and by the time Harry came back, out of breath, I would have sworn that Long John was innocent of conspiring to break the law with any villainous character. The fellow was so convincing as he acted out his lie that any policeman would have believed Long John and Black Dog were strangers to each other.
I'm sorry,
Harry gasped.
I lost him in a crowd.
You are a worthless swab,
Long John yelled. He scolded him with a furious intensity.
What's Captain Trelawney to think?
He said.
This pirate was sitting in my own tavern drinking my own rum, and you let him give us the slip.
He turned to me.
Now, Hawkins, you're a lad, but you're as smart as a fox. I saw that when you first came in. What could I do with this old wooden crutch I hobble on? When I was young, I would have asked the man his purpose here immediately, but now...
And then, all of a sudden, his jaw dropped, as though he'd remembered something.
His bill!
He burst out.
3 glasses of rum! Why, shiver my timbers! He owes me a lot of money!
Finally, he plopped down on a nearby bench and burst into laughter, making me laugh too.
You and I should get on well, Hawkins,
he said.
But come with me now. We'll go see Captain Trelawney and report this whole incident. Mind you, this is serious, and neither you nor I will look very good in his eyes. Certainly we won't look very smart.
As we walked to the inn, Long John told me about all the ships we passed, explaining the work that was being done on them and the cargo they carried. It was then I decided he would be one of the best possible shipmates I could ever sail with. When we arrived, Squire Trelawney and Dr. Livesey were seated together. and Long John told the story from beginning to end with great spirit and perfect truth.
That's how it was now, wasn't it, Hawkins?
He said, and I nodded.
It's a pity Black Dog got away,
Trelawney said.
but there's nothing to be done about it now. Thank you for telling us.
Long John took up his crutch and said,
Aye, aye, sir.
as he departed.
Well, Squire,
Dr. Livesey said,
as a general rule, I don't put much faith in your judgments of character, but Silver suits me.
He's a fine person,
Trelawney declared.
And now,
The doctor said.
may we go on board?
Of course.
Trelawney said.
Get your hat. We'll see the ship.
The Hispaniola was far out in the bay, but at last our small boat came alongside the ship and we stepped aboard. The first mate, Mr. Arrow, a brown old sailor with earrings in his ears, saluted us, and the squire greeted him like an old friend. But I soon observed that things were not the same between Mr. Trelawney and Captain Smollett. We'd hardly gone below deck and entered the captain's cabin when the captain himself came in and angrily shut the door behind him.
Captain Smollett, all is well, I hope?
Squire Trelawney said.
Well, sir,
The captain said.
I'll be frank. I don't like this voyage, I don't like the men, and I don't like my first mate.
Perhaps, sir, you don't like the ship.
The squire asked angrily.
I can't say that, as I haven't tried her.
The captain replied.
I guess you don't like your employer either.
The squire shot back. Seeing a fight brewing, Dr. Livesey cut in.
Calm down, gentlemen. Questions like that can only produce ill feelings, Squire,
He said.
Captain, I'd like an explanation. Why don't you like this voyage?
I've just learned we're going after treasure. Heard it from my own crew.
The captain said.
Searching for buried treasure can be dangerous, especially when the reason for the voyage is kept secret from the captain, Mr. Trelawney.
What are you suggesting, sir?
Trelawney asked indignantly.
There's been too much talk.
The captain said.
I don't believe either of you know what we're facing, but I'll tell you what I think will happen. It'll come down to life or death, and a narrow escape if we're lucky.
We are not as ignorant as you believe.
Dr. Livesey said.
You say you don't like the crew. Aren't they good seamen?
I should have been allowed to choose my own crew, sir.
Captain Smollett replied.
Perhaps my friend should have included you in the hiring,
Said the doctor.
but the squire did not mean to overstep his authority. You don't like Mr. Arrow.
I don't, sir. I believe he's a good seaman, but he's too chummy with the men. A first mate should behave with authority. Mr. Arrow acts as if he's one of the crew.
Tell us what you want, Captain.
The doctor said.
If you're determined to go on this voyage,
Smollett said.
then all the gunpowder and arms must be stored under my cabin. Second, I want to move your berths right beside my cabin.
Anything else?
Asked the squire.
There's been too much blabbing.
Said the captain.
Far too much.
The doctor agreed.
I've heard you have a map of an island, with crosses that show where the treasure is.
The captain said. And then he named the exact latitude and longitude of the island.
I never told a soul.
Squire Trelawney cried.
The crew knows all about the island, sir.
Said the captain.
Livesey, you or Hawkins must have said something.
The squire said.
It doesn't matter who.
Replied the doctor.
Well, gentlemen,
The captain said.
I don't know who has this map, but keep it secret, even from me and Mr. Arrow. Otherwise, I will resign.
You fear a mutiny.
The doctor said.
That's the reason you want all of us and the guns in the stern of the ship.
I wouldn't go to sea if I had evidence of a possible mutiny.
Captain Smollett said.
No captain would do that, but I am responsible for the life of everyone on board. So I'm asking you to take certain precautions, or let me resign. That's all.
I will do as you desire,
Said the squire.
but I don't like your attitude very much.
I don't care what you think, sir,
The captain said.
but I must do my duty.
And with that, he left.
Trelawney,
The doctor said.
I believe you've managed to get 2 honest men on board with you. That man and Long John.